Good afternoon, good morning to some. My name is Ray Walters. I'm with Epi Compliance. I'm joined here by my co-host, Mr. Jose Delgado. For those tuning in for the first time, appreciate you being here. A little bit about Jose. He's got 20 plus years of experience in healthcare consulting, currently owns and operates a mental telehealth clinic. Always appreciate his insights. Today's topic, who came up with this one? I think this one might have been mutual. Again, for
Yeah,
those
it was
that
a mix of a couple things because we wanted to talk about HR and HIPAA, and then there's some courier things that we were going to talk about as well in regards to this that I was
the,
looking to folding
the good
into
thing
this topic. So
The good thing
a
is
little
we
bit of
have,
everything.
yeah, a little bit of everything, and we are pretty much booked up for the rest of this month, as well as the first week of August, thanks to some suggestions from last week's webinar. But I think this particular topic, Jose, we discussed again, those that have attended with us, you probably heard about our CHSO program. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But Jose and I decided that we're going to essentially take a topic from the CHSO course and kind of discuss a little more in depth and kind of give you guys an idea of what's behind the CHSO training and kind of do it in bite-sized chunks. It's something we were going to do, I think, once a month moving forward. And today's subject, we're going to be talking about HIPAA security in HR, managing workforce risk before it becomes a breach. Um, Jose, I didn't know where you wanted to start with this.
Well,
We want to
I
start with the
want to
HIPAA
make
security
sure that
side or the
we,
HR side, or
so I want to make sure that we couch these in different sections, right? And what I mean by
sure.
this is that if I'm looking at the HR department, I'm basically dealing with three major concerns as it relates to HIPAA. One, for those organizations that are large enough to have employee benefits and the HR runs the employee benefits and HR, okay, then HR as it relates to 1099 contractors and the HIPAA requirements regarding that, and then HR regarding employees, right? Because
Sure.
these are three buckets, if you will, that kind of dictate how you run things. One of the problems with HR though is that, and this is misquoted all of the time, is that everyone remembers, oh, this is a rule for HR, but they don't remember which rule. And the reason why it's so tricky to remember is because for one part of HR, ADA applies. For another part, you've got to worry about HIPAA. For another part, you've got to worry about anti-discrimination. We're talking about, not anti-discrimination under, OC Office of Civil Rights, and we've got, you know what I mean, like we've got labor rules regarding, if you're, for example, like we were talking about couriers and HTSA. Do you have all the licenses in place? Do you have proper insurances in place? So there's a lot of different things that we have to track if I'm looking at HR. And then probably the worst part about HR is not even all the paperwork that I have to keep straight for the separate companies. It's when I have to talk to the employees. And here's why. Here's why. Because I have to talk to them in a certain way that doesn't elicit an improper response. And what I mean by an improper response is that there's an HR tone. And if you know what I'm talking about, you're laughing because you know that HR tone. It's very soft, it's very effeminate, for lack of a better term, um, because you don't want to offend and create a mountain out of a molehill, right? So there's a lot of different things that we can do on the HR side to allow for different voices, different types of voices to come through a little bit more strongly because enforcement of rules is easier when everyone knows and plays by the same rules. Is that fair? So everything is going to be based on policies and procedures. I know that we say this every freaking episode, but I don't think that everybody understands. Policies and procedures dictates everything. If you have crap policies, you're going to have a crappy experience because you can't hold anyone accountable for anything. because they didn't know they couldn't do that, Ossifer. If you have crappy follow through, you can have the best plan in the world. You're still not going to succeed. For those of you keeping track of the World Cup right now, look at Argentina against Egypt right now. So we have to go and not just have a strong plan. We have to have a strong execution. We have to have
That's
strong lines of where everything goes. And HR is one by its nature that there's a lot of things folded in. Okay.
I
So if
think
I'm dealing with
yeah.
contractors, this is easy in regards to HIPAA. The question is, do they have PHI or not? If I'm an HR department and they do not have PHI, I just need a contract. So I need to know how much I need to know how much to pay them, and we move on with life, right? If for purposes of the couriers, if they're 1099ers, you're going to probably want a copy of their license, a copy of their separate insurance, or if their bonding is appropriate as well, so on and so forth. If they are an employee, this is where things get fun. If they're an employee and we do not offer employee benefits, because this is the one that most people in the private realm tend to go to just because benefits are so bloody expensive. They benefit everybody but the employer. What we're looking at is training. A lot of training, a lot of policies. There's actually some hiring concerns as well, especially depending on how small of a town you're in, or small of a region you're in, or how small of an sub-industry you're in. And what I mean by that is this. While HIPAA may not necessarily apply, discrimination can. So we need to make sure that when we're doing the hiring process, that we're as fair as possible and that we're taking into account things that actually make sense for the role involved, right? So I'm going to name without naming a regular of ours, Ray, where there could have been potential exposure for the business if they had gone through and hired someone, right? But they knew that the reason why they were even looking for a job was that this individual was fired for embezzlement of their prior employer, and because of the connections that the future employer would have, they were actually able to find out about this before the person was officially starting the job, right? So I say that because you don't necessarily have a HIPAA problem there, but you could have had a discrimination problem there. You could have had a slander or libel conversation there. You could have opened up a whole can of worms regarding, hey, well, if so and so got arrested, are they allowed to work with us still? And this is all policies and procedures based, right? Now, in this
Got to be
case,
the
it
fine
would have been
line
very
right there.
simple to say. Well, it would have been very simple to say, hey, the reason why you got fired is because you got your hand caught in the cookie jar. The only reason why I know that is because this town is too damn small. So what we have here is a problem of telephone, right? But it can be a problem, and if there was nothing there, if it was a he said, she said, or it could not be proven in a court of law, then you have a problem, right? Because you could have lost out on somebody because of small town gossip, right? So we have to couch these. We have to be able to take a look at these. And if it was something to where, hey, maybe we just hired her. She just started working for us. And there are not strong rules in place regarding moral turpitude in our employee handbook. And I love the term moral turpitude because that can encompass any number of things, right? But remember, you live by the sword, you die by that sword. You gotta follow through. So if you say moral turpitude and you allow somebody to stay on the job after they've committed grand theft, or you don't suspend someone for DUI, you know what I mean? Like you have a problem in place.
It's not a good look
Now,
at
you see,
all.
Tracy, I wasn't even outing you. You know, the only people that were going to know would have been the people that knew, but now you had to out yourself.
Cat's out of
So,
the bag now.
so if you want to, and now that Tracy outed herself, if you want to know more about that topic, I want to say that we went over that, what, 6, 7 months ago, Ray?
Man,
I
It's
think it was like October,
it
November
was
last
a
year. So,
yeah, it was a while
um,
ago, but
yeah,
definitely yeah, we covered a full scoop on that one. That was an interesting one.
yeah. So
Thank you, shout
it
out
is,
Tracy for that for that topic of discussion and
yes.
personal
It's always
experience.
interesting what people come up with, but it was okay. December,
I'll
Tracy.
see if I can
Thank you.
find it,
So
share it with the
basically,
group.
what we're looking at though is we have to have very strong policies and procedures. We need to make sure that any decisions that are made, we can defend based on the actions of the employee, not predetermined or immutable characteristics, right? So if I have an employee that is late, I want to be able to make sure that I hold them accountable as I hold everyone. Hey, when I say, and I do this in our practice right now, hey, officially we start at 9, but that doesn't mean you show up at 9. The rule at our practice is if you're not here 10 minutes before, you're late. And the reason for that is because I don't want a patient to come to our practice and they're waiting for us at the door to get in, turn on the lights, and then us turn around and be like, hey, how can we help you? No, that's not how that should work. But that's an expectation that I set from Jump Street so that everyone is aware of what is going on. Right. So I can't hold someone accountable to a standard that I'm not willing to enforce because then it's not really a standard. Tracy, I mean, it's that ESPN we got going on. You know what I mean? Um, and a lot of office managers, especially those of a certain age, as in you've been in management roles for more than 3 years, because management roles always age you. They always age you up. Um, so you want to make sure that you are able to do that, and that's with strong HR rules. Now, when we are going to go and apply HIPAA to HR, this is where FMLA rules come into place. This is where any ADA concerns can come into place. Any We also have to take into account any issues regarding VA. So and I say VA in respect of, if they're a veteran and we're taking federal funding and we have, you know what I mean? Like there's certain government contracts that have funky rules in place that we got to make sure that we're following. Um, Affirmative action rules, VA rules, all those fun things. We need to make sure that the policies and procedures are followed by everyone. So if I have an employee that's late, I need to make sure that everyone knows what the standard is so I can hold everyone accountable the same way. If I can't hold everyone accountable, I can hold no one accountable. I can't just pick out that one person. And the biggest reason why I see practices get into trouble with HR is two reasons. And it basically boils down to the same thing. Either it's somebody's love life in the office, and because of that, they get preferential treatment, or they feel that they're a special class or have a special designation, and thus they can get away with different things. It all comes down to the same thing. Someone feels entitled, and we need to make sure that everyone knows that that is not how this works. I don't care if you don't have a license. If the job says, hey, you need to be here, you need to be here. I don't care if you fly on your broomstick, honey. Make sure you're here for work on time. Right? These are the basics that we have to hold people accountable from Jump Street, from the interview. Are you going to have a problem getting to work reliably? Are you going to have a problem dealing with patients? Do you have a problem picking up the phone or speaking to people on the phone? Or do you have a problem? I would even borderline now with how much EHRs are involved in billing services and things of that nature. What is the level of tech savviness that someone has? That's not an immutable characteristic. That's a trainable thing. But some people, I'll tell you right now, I am tech literate. I am not tech savvy. And once we reach a certain point, I get lost and I just can't figure out my head from the weeds. You know what I mean? Like I just don't know what's going on. I get flustered and I gotta slow down. Okay, well then guess what? I probably shouldn't be in the billing process. I probably shouldn't be in the programming process. So then at one, I shouldn't apply for that kind of a job. And two, you shouldn't hire me for that kind of a job. Fair, fair, right? But these are the kinds of conversations that we have to have on the front end so that way we can force them in the middle and the back end, right? The reason why people have so many hard times firing someone that they want to fire so badly is twofold. I can't find a good replacement, and I'm worried about getting sued for something. That's it.
Yeah.
Even though most of the states have right to work, you're still worried about this. Is it really right to work if it's not right to work, right? Like we have fun with this conversation, right? So now when we have in regards to, and this is where this gets annoying, okay? HR, when I have benefits and when I'm managing staff, we have a problem. And here's what I mean. Outside of ADA paperwork and all of that, and accommodations at work for different reasons and to be based on different rules and ocean, all this fun stuff. Uh, yeah, right. It does affect the practice and the income. Um, the other problem is that we need to remember that when we are taking benefits, especially health benefits, you are now a covered entity. Because remember, when it comes to PHI, you are either creating, storing, or transmitting patient health information. If you're getting it on paper, HIPAA privacy applies. If you're getting it on paper and then scanning it, guess what, boo boo? Both of them apply. Here's for and it could be literally, you could be an HR department and you're a courier. You don't deal with PHI, you're just literally a messenger. But now PHI is involved. You're screwed. Now we have to be careful with this. So, how do we deal with this kind of thing? Well, let's deal with it. Based on the fact that HIPAA requires protections on information, it is highly recommended that one, you split the benefits person from the HR management person. And the reason for this is you want to create a distance between you being able to hold people accountable to rules and information about their health or their family's health that could affect your decision making. Because we have to hold everyone accountable. We have had one situation where we needed to fire an employee. Employee been around for a while. Company offers benefits. The family is on the health insurance, but because the manager is also the HR person, which is also the benefits person, the manager kept this person around a lot longer than they should because they knew that the family was going through some health issues. And thus, they were able to keep the benefits for longer without having to pay for Cobra, which if you don't know what Cobra is, congratulations. If you've never had to deal with Cobra and the paperwork and the cost of Cobra, congratulations. You never really want to. Okay. Cobra, yeah, we're not going to get into Cobra. We can get into Cobra is a whole nother topic. But the problem is, that office manager, because they didn't want to be mean, couldn't hold that employee accountable, and thus there was an issue in the workplace. Why is Bobby getting away with murder? Because Susie, the manager, feels bad for him and his family. Wait, so Bobby's going to show up late? I'm going to show up late. What's she going to do to me? If she fires me, now we have a discrimination problem. Oh, what? Because I don't have a family? You can fire me, but you can't fire Bobby for doing the same exact thing? Here's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the problem, right? Oh, You couldn't fire me because you knew I was healthy, or you knew that I was going to be sick and it was going to cost the group health insurance plan a lot of money. So you fired me so that way it wouldn't affect the plan, right? We just don't want these potential scenarios that not necessarily the lawsuits are going to hold up in court, but it's just the headache of having to sit down with the lawyers and then prepping the defense and then sitting down and going over depositions and then having to block the time off with the people in charge and the lawyers to mediate this. And this stupid thing can get crossed away for about 10 grand. You know what I mean? Like it's these stupid things that cost businesses money for unnecessary things, and or they cost a year and a half, 2 years of time. That employee could be gone, 100% gone, and you're still dealing with the case because it's stupid and got filed ages ago. You know what I mean? Like I've seen these things before. So it's if possible, you should separate it. Now, if you're in a situation where you are not self-funding, right? And what I mean by self-funding is you have a large enough business that you can fund the entire insurance plan in and of itself, right? So you're normally seeing this with larger organizations. I would say 100 to 100 up employees, depending on income. Um, that's where I normally see these group funded plans. Sometimes you can do it 50 and up. It just gets pricey, right? So, anyways, if possible, you want to be able to offload that piece of it, the benefits piece of it. Because again, if there's any mental health issues, if there's any substance abuse issues, if there's any cancer issues or anything like that that is not related to their work because it doesn't affect their work, but it does affect their health, then this is protected information. You shouldn't have access to it if you're HR. If I have an employee that had substance abuse issues and has run through the program, but they've been clean and sober, not affecting their life for the last 5 years, last 3 years, last year, and they're new to me, do I have a right to that information as their manager? Absolutely not.
Doesn't matter.
Absolutely not. Because it doesn't affect the way I do my job. Now, if I slip off the wagon, now it opens up the door. How long have you been an addict for? Because, anyone who's done the 12 steps or worked in addiction programs, once an addict, you are an addict and fighting that battle forever. Okay, cool. It's a chronic condition. So we've got to make sure that, does this affect our work? Does this affect our decision making as HR, as management? In order to do that, the best way possible is to have strong policies and procedures. Okay? If I'm going to be HR and I'm going to offer benefits in our organization, then what we need to do is sit down and have a set of protocols for how we are storing this information, when I can access this information, and when I am reprimanding someone, that I'm signing something saying that it has nothing to do with anything on the health side. I just don't even want it even there. Right? Because if I have, let's say I'm diagnosed with anxiety, right? Oh, it's thunderstorming. I'm late to work today. Yeah, exactly. I'm late to work today. Okay, cool. Why were you late today, Bobby? Oh, well, my anxiety kicked in because of the severe thunderstorm. Okay, what am I supposed to do with this? If I'm a manager, if the employee is offering me this information, okay, cool, I can do something with this information. Tracy, it's not about calling BS. It's about holding the standard, right? I can call BS as long as Bobby knew and he's been hired to do a job and he knew the time that it was going to be there. Bobby could have called an Uber. Bobby could have called a taxi. Bobby could have asked his roommate to drive him. None of that occurred. That's not on us as the organization. That's on Bobby for not being a bloody adult. And we can inform him of this when we sit down with him. Hey Bobby, okay, thanks for letting me know you're going to be late. By the way, I need to retrain you on this when you get here. Come see me. And this doesn't have to be a big deal. Like I hate it so much when people just blow things up that don't need to be done, right? Tracy, I mean, the things that I get told are absolutely, it's absolutely wild, right? But we need to hold everybody accountable. So it's like, hey, Bobby, I don't want to have this HR conversation with you either. However, I have to hold the standard. You're late today. You knew you were late today. Thank you for letting me know. That's what you should have done if you were going to be late. I need to have this conversation with you. This is just us having a talk. Don't make a habit of it. Let's get back to work. This doesn't have to be a big deal. This doesn't have to be a write up. This just has to be a conversation because when Susie does this tomorrow and blames some nonsense like the dog ate my homework and I was late 15 minutes, but Susie didn't even bother telling me she was going to be late, I have to have the same conversation with Susie. And that one's going to be a little bit more serious because at least she didn't give me
She
the
didn't
courtesy of
inform
a
you.
heads up.
Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't give me the professional courtesy of being of letting me know. But now I can hold Susie to account because you were late and I talked to you too. And then when Susie pulls this ish next week, I can write her up for it. And I can tell Susie, this is 2 weeks. Now guess what? One more and you're out. By the way, because I'm writing you up and because you were late 15 minutes this week and 15 minutes last week, I'm taking it out of your paycheck. If you're salary, if you're hourly, it doesn't matter because they're clocking in, right? You know what I mean? Like there are actual things that we can do, but we cannot do them if we mix church and state, or if it can be assumed or presumed that we mix church and state, if that makes any sense, right? So we have to, have to be careful with this stuff. Okay. If I'm HR, I want to make sure that I have a strong policy and procedure handbook. I want to make sure that the employees know what they need to do. And I need to have a handbook for what I do and how I do it as HR. For example, I'm going to have the conversation with Bobby and I'm going to have the conversation with Susie. Perfect. In our organization, let's say that we're 15 employees, do I have the same conversation one-on-one, or do I have a second person there of the same gender as the person that I'm speaking to avoid any discrimination, harassment, blah 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 allegations, right? It's just what it is. If you know what I mean? Like, and it's again, it's not because I want to have this conversation. It's not because I want to go down this route, but it's because I need to, the whole purpose of HR is to protect the team and protect the business. Right? Protecting one means that we're protecting both. I do not believe that protecting employees means that you are hurting the business, or by protecting the business, you're hurting the employees. That does not need to be a dichotomy that exists. It's not a black or white thing. Literally, figuratively, ecumenically, right? So we want to make sure that when we're dealing with HR, we're dealing with HR. When we're dealing with the health side of an employee, we're dealing with that health side. If they have to mix, we want to make sure that we have a clean policy and procedure of how they mix, how that information is stored, right? I don't want someone's professional record being mixed with their employee health record. That's a bad idea. I don't want that employee health record, for the same token, being stored in the same way with the same level of access as their employee mental health information. Or if there's any ADA things that we don't need to talk about. in the
Sure.
greater public, right? Because we always talk about bloodborne pathogen, bloodborne pathogen, bloodborne pathogen. Perfect. What if one of our employees is one of those patients? Does someone who has HIV, are they not allowed to work? Could they not be the best employee that you've ever had? Does everyone have to know they have HIV? No. Right? Like, so this is where, again, we have this odd scenario of, okay, I have an HIV employee. We really need to be knowledgeable on our bloodborne pathogen policies and procedures. We have to go over it anyways. Let's go over it. You know what I mean? And we make sure that we enforce the this is not just with patients, but also with employees. That's it. That's the extent of the conversation, right? We don't need to go into, oh, well, why are we having this training this time? Oh, we had it 90 days ago. Oh, David must have cut himself. No one needs to do that. No one needs to do that because now you have a problem, right? You have a problem on a morale side of things. You have a problem on a discrimination, ostracization side of things. You have potentially a hostile workplace issue. You don't need that nonsense. You don't need that nonsense. You don't need that nonsense. Trust me. If you've never gone through it and you're in management, you don't want to.
You don't want
It's a
Dave to start
pain.
some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you know what's funny is that a lot of people will go and ask me, "Hey, what's worse? That there actually is a problem or that there isn't a problem and we're defending an allegation?"
Hmm.
It's the latter. The worst one is the latter. How do I prove that I'm not a racist? How do I prove that it didn't harass anyone? You know what I mean? Like, how do I prove a negative? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? So we've just got to go and make sure that we protect our people as best we can. The best way to do that, strong policies, strong procedures, strong training, strong training on the HR department internally and on the team and how they interact with HR and the role within HR. Okay. So
I'd
in a
say this is
nutshell, that's that piece. Go ahead,
It's
Ray.
the policy side of things. You want to be specific. You don't want to leave things out. And I think a good example was when we were talking about the OSHA. We use the fridge as an example. If you're storing
Yep.
vaccines or medications in a fridge, there was a won't say any names, but there was a customer of ours that had policies in place, but it really, it kind of discussed, hey, the fridge should be this temperature, but there wasn't any specifics on, well, how often should staff members be checking this, and those things. So, like I said, it kind of correlates to this. Just write those specifics down,
Now,
in
if I'm a
individual
courier,
situations.
right, there's different things that we can do to hold people accountable, but it's all about those policies and procedures. If you're an employee and you're a bike courier, for example, right, and you're just working through a major metropolitan area, or you're just a day courier, they're basic things. I like to call them the transporter rules. If anybody remembers those Jason Statham movies from the early 2000s, ouch, that hurts my soul a little bit. Simple things like, hey, you don't open the package. Why? Because it's not your
Not
package.
yours.
You drive the package. There are certain things that you can do to monitor how that package is being delivered. Between, that bump. I don't like the bumper sticker of how's my driving because that just causes problems more than headache than solves problems. But I mean, it's not hard to install LoJack into vehicles. If an employee is using their own vehicle, there's some compensation that needs to be handled there. There's some insurance concerns that I have in regards to what's a personal versus what's business. So I would recommend, using if they're an employee using a business vehicle. I mean, it doesn't have to be an old an old ambulance, you know what I mean? Depending on what they're transporting, it can be a friggin' Honda Civic, like I don't it just depends on the size and the requirements to move such a thing, right? And usually
Sure.
to move such a thing, you have certain rules in place that are set by federal or state regulations, and you follow those. And you have a checklist that the employee has to go and sign off on the checklist when they're packing their car. Perfect. When they drop off the delivery, hey, just like you probably do now, sign receipt that everything's good, perfect. And then I'm pissing off. You know what I mean? Like I'm going back to headquarters or moving the next thing, right? Well, if there's sanitation that needs to be done in between deliveries, you need to have a checklist for that. Who's going to sign off on that? Are you going to have, a second employee, not just the driver, but a second employee confirm, maybe a supervisor or a manager or a shift lead saying, yep, everything's good. All right, you can grab the next thing. It all depends on the different business model. We do not have the time to drive into every different business model in that respect, but I would honestly tell you that if I am managing employees for courier services, Alexa, boom, you know what I mean? Like there's so many scenarios here that we need to account for, but it all depends on the business model. All right. It is not hard to plan for everything when it's an easy success. It is humbling though when you plan for when everything goes bad and how do we adjust? That's what the policies and procedures are for. Not for when everything is great, but when everything goes to hell, that you can lean back on something and say, okay, my team and I know what to do because it's easily spelled out here. And that's what having a strong compliance program allows for you to do. That's what a strong HR program allows for you to do. Hey, Bobby got into a car accident. Perfect. Well, on one side, on the HR side, I got to make sure that Bobby's okay. All right, cool. Bobby's okay. Perfect. Now I need to prep for what comes next. Make sure that these things are in place. All right. So I know that our director, editor, producer has some announcements. If you've got any questions, throw them into the chat and we'll try to go over them. Because I know Ray's got a hard out today. So what do
Yeah,
we
I
got?
got a meeting here coming up. But anyways, no, Jose, I appreciate that. And if anybody has any questions from today's session, please feel free to take the time to chime in and chat. Um, Other than that, just sort of the usual stuff I mentioned earlier. We're booked up with webinar topics until the end of this month. We did get in touch with Dr. Delgado, who will be joining us last week of July. Topic pending there. I know next week we're going to be talking about Jose. We talked about the insurance upheaval that's going on. I think in particular, and I'm going to share an article across to everybody.
Currently, the CHSO training is offered, or the certification is offered two ways. One is completely online. Second is a boot camp. Dr. Delgado recommends both. My ADHD won't allow it. If you're the kind of person that learns on your own terms, on your own time, then the online courses will help. If you're someone that wants something a little bit more interactive or needs dry information done in as entertaining a possible way for compliance purposes, that's what the boot camp is for. It's 9 hours with me, and we run through quickly over 10 courses, each one about an hour, the 282 different measures that are in HIPAA security. And I'd like to keep that boot camp relatively small, no more than 15 or so people. And the reason for that is I want to be able to not just tell you what the rules are, one thing, and now it works for that over there, right? So that's where that course really comes into play. The boot camp comes into play, rather. And no certification is complete without a test. So the idea would be that the day after the boot camp, 2 hours, you've got to knock out that test. I believe, Ray, though, that if you either complete the courses online or if you do the boot camp, the test will open up for you once you start it. You have 2 hours to complete it. It's 100 questions, all multiple choice, A, B, C, D. So it really doesn't take full 2 hours. The most I've seen somebody take was about an hour and 45 to do the 100 questions. they're not designed to stump you, because when it comes to compliance, you can get really funky with these rules and what applies where. So it's just trying to help people understand and be able to progress within their careers.
Yeah, and to your point, you take the online test and you pass it, you don't necessarily have to attend the boot camp. It's optional. We'd like you
Yeah.
to attend, but if you pass the online version, you will get your certificate mailed. If you do not pass the online version first, then it's a requirement that you attend the boot camp. Essentially, you get two chances to take the test. Um, we'll
Absolutely.
send some information out in our post-webinar correspondence. Again, I appreciate everybody's time joining us today. Jose, didn't know if you had anything else.
Nope, that's it. Stay out of trouble, guys. Enjoy the weather. I think most of us are going to be sunny for the rest of the week. So,
God willing.
yeah, yeah. Find a pool or a lake.
Yeah, right. Well, you take care, everyone, and just be on the lookout for next week's webinar link, and we'll see everybody next week.
Take it easy.
Take care, everyone.